First Impetvs battle report. See how well this turns out. Earlier I did a video on the layout of the terrain, so I won't get too deep into that right now. But the forces are deployed, and we're about ready to start turn one. So I guess I'll go into the deployments, the forces, and a little on the terrain. First of all, the background to the scenario takes place in mid-13th century England during the Second Baronial War that featured the forces of Henry III, the royalist king at the time, going against the rebel alliance led by Simon de Montfort. On the left here we have the rebel forces, and on the other side there we have the royalist forces. Basically, both armies are 350 points. Both sides have two separate commands, and let's see if I can get into it a little bit. Let me see here. Okay, let's see. That might be a little bit better. Let's see. Here's the rebel forces. All right, the first command, the main command, covers this flank over here, the opposite side of that little shrub there. Basically, it's made up of Welsh and some feudal crossbowmen, I think, and some knights. Over there, we have Commander-in-Chief with his units of knights upgraded. They're household knights, heavy cav, and a second unit is part of his group, which is another unit of feudal knights. So he's in the reserve. He's right there, actually. That's me, Lord Von Braun, of course. So I will be personally commanding. Over in here, we've occupied this built-up area, this village, with some Welsh Lightfoot. Lightfoot. So there's some Welsh in there. And over here, we have two units right there of Welsh bowmen, supported in the rear by a Welsh foot. And then on the flank of them and the rest of the group, we have two more units of crossbows. So that's the main command for the royalist side. They're supported by the second command, which is on the other side of this little shrub thing there. And it's made up of some dismounted sergeants and freemen, which are spear-armed troops, pretty reliable. And there's a large unit right in the back, which is made up of two separate units, so it's pretty big. That's supporting these feudal English archers in the front. There's two units of archers, two smaller units of spearmen, and in the back we have the large unit of spearmen. And these are all freemen, basically. Behind them we have a unit of more knights with a general in it. And on the other side we have another unit of knights, feudal knights. So he had to break them up because there's a little risk of trouble coming on this side of the flank, so he kind of separated them off. And of course that's their camp for the rebel side. So there you go. Over here we got some steep slopes. Again, we're not counting the geohex terrain, just the actual hills. We're just ignoring the geohex terrain for line of sight, combat modifiers, etc., etc. And again, there's the village. I decided not to burn it to the ground. I'm going to try and hold it, and I got my Welsh troops in there. So we'll see what happens. This flank over here is kind of open, so I'm kind of concerned. So, all right, let's take a look at the royalists. Let's take a look at the royalist forces. Again, it's two commands, two separate commands in the royalist army. And the main command is the Commander-in-Chief's force, which is on this side. And up here in that corner, we have their camp, of course. Down here, we have a group of two units of sergeants. And we have this little group over here, which is made up of two feudal English archers and backed up by a large unit of freemen, spearmen, and three units, is it three? One, two, three. Yeah, three units of feudal knights. And the Commander-in-Chief is located here in that unit right there, and it has been upgraded. So that's one of the most powerful units in his army. So that's the command group. 3 units of knights, 2 units of archers, one large unit of spearmen, and 2 units of sergeants. And his second command group has a lot of mercenaries in it. It's this group right here, which is made up of 3 units. 1 unit of mercenary crossbows, a large unit of spearmen, and a mercenary unit of spearmen. And I believe that unit right there is the general, feudal knights, not upgraded, because you can only upgrade 1 in the army. And that unit there is mercenary feudal knights, so that's a very powerful unit as well. So that's the second group right there. And they're up on that steep hill, we're calling it. So that's the Royalist forces, 350 points, 2 separate commands, and looks pretty. That's the deployment of the forces. And we're using standard impetus deployment. The only thing I'll say so far is that in the Royalist force, they have a lot of knights, a lot of high-quality knights, more than the rebels have. I mean, the rebels have 4 separate units of basically feudal knights, all of which are impetuous, I mean, which means they're going to be charging anyone that comes close. And it's the same over here. All the knights over here are impetuous, as well as the sergeants. But they have a lot of them, and they have a mercenary one right there, which is really good. They got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 heavy cavalry units in all. So that's going to be a tough task for the rebel forces to deal with. I'm not sure it was a good idea holding on to that built-up area, though, and manning it with some Welsh spearmen. I don't know how long I'm going to hold that, but we'll try. Yeah, that's the situation. I guess we'll go into the next phase, which will be my strategy for the game. About my strategy, now I'm going to approach this battle, so you can kind of follow along, see what I'm going to do. Basically, I'm holding that village. That's going to be my flank. I intend to hold that as long as I possibly can. If the enemy captures it, I lose, I think it's 3 victory points or what it is, but I don't want to lose that. Basically what I want to do is advance this group here, which is made up predominantly of archers and crossbowmen supported by some spearmen, which are good against knights, incidentally. Get them up into this gap between the village and that open field. So I don't have far to move. Move up there, take up a nice defensive position, wait for his advance, and just saturate him with bowfire if that's possible. And I'm going to support them with my knights. Any weakness, I strike. But yeah, I think he's going to do that too, because he has a nice, his knights, his main force of knights is right there. He's got more up here, and their front rank is like mine. Got the archers and spearmen to support it. So I think he is going to go after this village and try and capture it, as well as pressure me in the middle. It's going to be tough for me to hold that middle, to be honest with you, if he does attack there. So I don't know. I had some issues with my deployment, unfortunately. And I'm not happy with this situation here in the middle. It's going to be tough for me to hold that line. And my second command group deployed in front of my my camp. I'm not afraid of losing my camp or getting it sacked or anything. I'm not afraid of that. He doesn't have troops to do that, really. It's well defended, good position to be in. I'm not afraid of that. But the bulk of my infantry, my fighting force for my infantry, I mean, I got 3 units, a large one and 2 more on the flank. But there isn't many knights to square off against. In fact, there's not much of anyone. So I don't know what he's going to do up there. I think he's going to be a little bit defensive up there with his sergeants, which are powerful knights too. So they're no walk in the park to go against. But I think what I'm going to do on this flank, I'm going to have to make some adjustments. I've got the 2 units of knights and the infantry, and then the archers in the middle there. I'm going to try and get my archers, advance them up maybe through this. I don't know. I don't want to go through that closed field. That's difficult ground, and that's not a good thing. In fact, this field here is an issue for me. It's going to be a problem in this battle. I know it is. But I think I will kind of support this side with one of those units of archers. I'm going to advance this infantry and the archers up as quickly as possible and engage his sergeants as quickly as possible. Possibly strike the enemy flank if the option is there. And I'm going to see if I can go for his camp, really. Late in the game, it could be a turning point. And I'm going to support that attack with one of those units of knights, feudal knights. The general, or the general of this force, is here, and I'm not sure what I'm going to do. I have an issue. This flank is going to be in big trouble if his mercenaries and feudal knights come this way. I don't know if they will or not. The one unit is his general for this group, so I don't think he's going to go far from this force. But his mercenaries up on the hill might chance it to get around that village and come up this way. I don't know. I don't know what he's going to do, but I'm in trouble as far as that's concerned. So I might want to shift some troops this way to help protect me there. You know, it's just basically faulty deployment on my part. I'm the defender, by the way, so I had to start deployment first, so he had an advantage with that. That's my plan. That's going to be a problem. Watch and see how that affects the battle. See what happens here in the middle. If I lose this, I'm in trouble, and I'm weak to begin with. And I don't know what's going to happen here, but I'm going to try and move up and attack his camp, possibly shift forces this way or up through that gap to help protect this force. And I don't want to lose that built-up area. So we'll see what happens, folks. That's my plan. And one more thing is that that hill is steep, so it's difficult ground. This hill right here is steep, also difficult ground. That right there is not difficult ground. It's an obstacle. It's the lesser terrain problem. That enclosed field, that's difficult ground. You could also see over it, no problem to line of sight. And that built-up area is difficult ground and blocks line of sight. And that field, same thing, difficult ground and does not block line of sight. So it's pretty much open, regardless of the fact that there's geohex hills involved here. We're basically ignored. Imagine this being a flat space, if you will. The road advantages if we get on it and move on it. I don't think it's going to come in handy in this battle. And the only other terrain to consider is that forest, which is difficult ground. I don't think anyone's going to go near that. And that little copse of trees, that's also a little wood. That's difficult ground. And I don't think anybody's going to want to move through that either. So there is some terrain to consider. It's going to have an impact on this battle. So the open spots like this, and up in there, and down here, that's where you're going to see probably the bulk of the fighting. We shall see, folks. That's my strategy. Let's see what he does. We're going to go into turn one. And let's get this going. One other thing I should probably cover before I get into the actual game is what's called the demoralization value, or the total demoralization value of the armies. It's basically a break point. Every unit in the game has a certain value to it, and if it's lost, like it's destroyed or routed, it adds to your army's demoralization value. And for instance, the royalist demoralization value is 14. When 14 points have been reached in losses, the army withdraws from the battle and it loses. For the rebels, it's 13. And every unit has a value. Like knights typically have 3, foot units, infantry, archers typically have 1 or 2 points. And when they're lost, it adds to that demoralization value. So to give you some idea, so you can kind of follow along, it's like for the royalists it's 14, and for the rebels it's 13. So I'll kind of go along with that and keep you up to date as to the progress of that demoralization value for the sides. So you'll know who's winning and who isn't. Okay, folks, see you in the next turn. Turn one. I think turn started off with the rebel forces starting it off, and then it kind of alternated back and forth regarding initiative. But basically, nothing much happened. They're still in the deployment phase. But both sides are basically rushing forward. The vast majority of the units have been disordered because of the mad rush forward. Pretty much as predicted. So far, there we go. The mercenaries come off the hill. These guys right there. Disordered. By the way, those little red rubies, I'm going to be using them in the game to show disordered formations, disordered units. So keep an eye out for them. Sure to happen. Alright, end of turn one. Both sides moved forward. Reached the end of turn 2. Still pretty much as expected. Forces are still rushing forward. There was some rallying going on, some of which was successful, particularly over here for the Royalist forces. The mercenaries were pretty good at that. Right there's the general, the second in command of the Royalist forces. So he kind of turned to face. We got mercenaries moving towards the village. More mercenary knights coming off the hill, heading in this direction. They're still disordered. There was some shooting. This massive line for the rebel forces had a couple units take shots at that feudal English unit up there of archers, and right there, and managed to put a hit on it. And it's disordered. So that's -1 to its VBU, which I believe is 4. So it's down to 3 now. Outside of that, that's about it. The Royalist forces, there's no disorder there. The general is. His forces are advancing. In fact, none of their forces are disordered in the back. None of the knights of the rebels are disordered. They're making cautious advances, basically. And their main battle line right here is pretty much disordered, except for some of the archers in the middle of the formation. So I imagine they're going to go on opportunity in the next turn. The forces are closing in. A little bit staggered, but it's getting off to a start, folks. Okay, turn 3 coming up. Alright, that's the end of turn 3. Royalist forces trudged forward. They won initiative 2 times in a row, got both their commands moving forward. They got a lot of disorder going on now. Getting closer to that built-up area. Looks like they might be assaulting it in the next turn or 2. We shall see. For my forces, the rebels, finally got my lines straightened out right up in here. And those English longbows are paying off. I put a lot of hits and did a lot of disorder on the advancing enemy, including their spearmen, the mercenary crossbows, and even their feudal English archers up top. So yeah, I did put down some good fire on them. My crossbows weren't very effective. My longbowmen, I got 2 units of them, both of them down here, did pretty good. So I'm happy with that. Slowing the advance down, disrupting them, putting some hits on them. So we'll see if they can take that little village. I don't know. Otherwise, the forces up on that side, they advance slowly. I'm not happy with that. I knew this field was going to be an issue, and it's slowing down my archers, so we'll see. I don't think he's going to be approaching it anytime soon anyway. But so far, there we go, folks. Going to turn 4. Just finished 3 turns, and the forces have advanced pretty much the way I suspected. I got the mercenaries down here, come off the hill. They're currently in disorder, a little bit slowed. Also down here, his line looks pretty ragged. There's a lot of disorder going on, and after 3 turns, I managed to get the bulk of my line pretty straight and narrow, and let off some good shots with those Welsh longbows. So I did some good hits with them. As you can see down here, some of these units have little micro dice on them next to the red ruby. That indicates that they've taken damage, permanent losses to their VBU, which is their basic unit value. It's their combat rating, basically. For instance, this large unit took 1, the crossbowmen next to it right here, they took 2, and I think they have 1 more VBU point left, so they'll be routed from the table if they take another permanent loss. And up there in the top is a unit of archers that took some damage too. Permanent damage. Outside of that, it's the only combat and damage that's been going on. He's still holding back on the other side of that woods with his sergeants. They haven't advanced, but they're impetus, which means if I get close enough, they're just going to go out of control and charge me more likely than not. I'm having trouble getting through that field, of course, as I suspected. Even my archers, which are, I believe, there are missile troops, T troops, so even they're slowed. Yeah, slow going up there. I've got all my knights back here. None of them are disordered. Just kind of holding back, keeping my troops in command. I'm still holding on to this village with my Welsh footman, as you can see in there. There's a couple guys running around watching the perimeter. And it looks like he might be out to assault it. I'm not sure what exactly he wants to do, but that's what's in front of him. Right up here he has his mercenaries, foot troops, long spear. And these guys here, these are mercenary knights, pretty elite troops there, but they're pretty much going to be out of command for quite a while. I don't know how they're going to get over that disorder. If he decides to take them up and around this village, or if he can even attack the built-up area. And there's a look at his forces. So I don't know. I'm wearing down his front line. And we're about to see what happens. Turn 4 is about to come. Okay, folks. See you then, folks. Just finished 2 more turns. So far, the forces are still advancing on one another. There's getting to be a big cluster here in the middle on the royalist side. You can see the red rubies where they've been taking a lot of disorder from the shooting from me up on the hill there. I did manage to destroy one of his archer units right there by that red dice. It's about to be removed from the table, so short range fire from my crossbows paid off. My longbows are just wreaking havoc on his infantry advancing on the town down here, which I think he's about to assault with his mercenary spearmen. We'll see what happens with that in the next turn. His sergeants up here, they're impetuous, and they were in range to go out of control. My troops were advancing. A lot of disorder up there. It's a mess. I didn't want to talk about it. But they managed to go on opportunity, pass their discipline checks. As a group, they went on opportunity, and they didn't have to advance toward my line. So they're still holding back. So that's good news for them. So yeah, that's the battle so far. Okay, going into turn 6, folks. There's 3 turns. It's the bottom of the 8th, and this is what it looks like. And the forces are starting to get engaged, so the battle lines are clashing. You can see that the royalist line is pretty beat up and just taking so much withering fire from those crossbowmen and longbowmen up on the hill. Pretty treacherous. Let me see if I could get a different view here. But down here, the built-up area has been being attacked repeatedly by these 2 units of spearmen, that mercenary one and then the freeman one. They keep being repulsed, so it looks like that unit of Welsh spearmen is paying off for me. Yeah, it's been about, I think, 2 or 3 turns in a row that they've been attacked, and they're just being pushed back. And in fact, this unit right here, if you remember, that used to be a large unit. And because of the Welsh longbows repeatedly shooting down on it, it's now half the size it was. So they took a lot of casualties. They're both disordered. And actually, to be honest with you, they're both 1 away from being destroyed, each of them. They're at 3 permanent losses each, and their max is 4. So those units are in big trouble. Royalists aren't having any success with their shooting whatsoever. You can see that they're disordered and take a lot of hits down on their crossbowmen and their archers. They finally did get that large unit of spearmen up on the hill. It failed to charge in the last turn I just played. So they're just literally millimeters away from making contact. So next turn for sure. And of course they're being fired at close range by the crossbows. And the general, commander-in-chief of the Royalists, is also getting frustrated and making a move for that battle line. So, yeah, it looks like that defensive position I have there is paying off. Slowed the enemy right down. And of course my knights are sitting back there. No disorder, perfect shape. All I gotta do is put them on opportunity and I'm good. Now, this side on the other hand, I think these sergeants, these royalist sergeants, have been an opportunity for a few turns as well. That's the little yellow marker. That reminds me that they're on opportunity. But right here, similar situation as the left over here, is that I've got this narrow gap. I'm getting clogged in here. I can't get through the damn thing. I got archers up there just slowed down to a snail's pace. I've been sitting there just taking shots at these sergeants down here. I finally started pushing through. I got my archers leading the way with the spearmen behind them. a large unit, in fact. Kind of a waste of troops, but that's what's there. And they opportunity charged my archers. And believe it or not, they fought to a draw. So I advanced my spearmen up behind them, and we'll see what happens with that. I gotta try and punch through here somehow. But he's doing a good job of plugging me up with just 2 units. Of course, I got my second in command back there with his knights, but he can't get through this mess if he wanted to. And everybody's disordered, as you can see, with the red markers. So, yeah, that's the battle so far, folks. And I don't know what's going to happen. But we're about to go into turn 9 coming up here, and I think things are going to get very bloody, especially in the middle. I think these knights are finally going to get through and hit my battle line of archers, and shit I got up there. I got some Welsh spearmen up there. So we'll see if they do get through. I got my knights to meet them. So far so good. Alright folks, see you in the next turn. Folks, we're at the top of turn 9, and things are starting to happen, so I thought I'd video what's going on here, activation by activation. And the first 2 formations, commands that were trying to get initiative and go first for the turn was his CNC and my CNC, the Rebel CNC. So it was a standard roll-off, but he's a fair commander, I'm an excellent commander. But he rolled double 1s on his initiative roll. And what that means in Impetus is that your commander drops a quality level. So his fair rating dropped to poor. So he's now poor, which incidentally, his second in command is also poor. So the entire Royalist army is now under poor command. Mine, on the other hand, I'm excellent, and my second in command is fair. I'll give you a heads up on that. But anyway, my command, my CNC's command activated, and what we did is I basically fired with my entire line. Starting with the crossbows, I put some disorder on his commander-in-chief's unit up here. This crossbow unit just fired on these guys, which was ineffective, typical against heavy infantry, even at this range. My longbows, on the other hand, both units were very effective. I managed to destroy this unit of English archers over here, and this longbow unit destroyed this mercenary unit of crossbowmen. So, good turn for me, good activation. Tried to put them on opportunity, failed, and this unit of Welsh spearmen, which are in support of these Welsh longbowmen, I did something interesting. I put them on opportunity, because I'm curious what would happen if these guys interpenetrated and got behind these guys, or were forced to retreat through these guys, because normally these guys would not be disordered because of that move. So I'm curious what would happen if they were forced to retreat through these guys. Could they take an opportunity action against somebody here? I didn't see that happen before, so I'm curious what would happen rules-wise. So we'll see. Alright, going to go to the second activation for the turn. We're still in turn 9, folks. Reached the midpoint of turn 9. The second command to activate was the Royalist Commander-in-Chief, so he finally got his off. Let's see what happened. Alright, what happened was his infantry started off first and did a charge and fought against these mercenary crossbowmen. And wouldn't you believe it, they were forced to retreat. So that was a weird situation. So they got 3 losses and they're disordered, and nothing on them. What happened was that these guys never did any damage to this unit, so they never had to make a cohesion test. So therefore, no disorder. So they were repulsed. He followed that up with his unit, his household knights, who were impetuous anyway and had to advance toward the enemy, so he just declared a charge. Charged in, smashed those crossbowmen that were sitting there, destroyed them, pursued them, and got that far. So he's now disordered, and he has 1 loss. And these 2 units, which were originally back here, also being impetuous, they opted not to hold back and go on opportunity, and advanced and advanced the second movement phase as well, and both units got to here. They moved separately, of course, because they had to do some wheeling, so they can only do that individually. So 2 movement phases forward, and they're both disordered, which ended their movement, and that's where they are. So they're closing in on my battle line. The only other thing that happened was that this unit over here, which is part of that command, also activated and fought this melee once again, and it's still drawn. So these guys being mounted, whatever, they're not breaking through. So the English archers over here are holding their ground. And being backed up by these spearmen, I don't know what's going to happen, but it should be interesting. And the second unit is also still on opportunity. They're also impetuous, but because they're on opportunity, they don't have to advance towards an enemy within 30 centimeters. So that's the situation. So my second command over there still has to activate. See what they do. They'll fight again, of course, with my activation. And his second in command also has to activate during this turn yet. So that's it. We're at the midpoint of turn 9. Okay, see who activates next and the results thereof. Be back, folks. Bottom of the 9th. Just finished the last 2 commands. Everybody activated, so the turn is over. And it started off with my second in command force over here. They basically moved up a little bit. Some of them are going through the woods there, as you can see, which is slow, even slower than I'd like, so that's an issue. But there was the melee that was fought between that unit and the archers, and believe it or not, the archers won. His unit was forced back, and there they are, facing the enemy. Disordered, they've taken 2 losses. My archers are disordered and took 1 loss. And all my force is pretty much disordered. Everything is disordered except the CNC's unit back there, Cav. And my archers moved up a little bit in the field. That disordered them, and they took a shot at his unit. Still on opportunity. I'm trying to get him off opportunity by disordering him, but that didn't work out. And so yeah, that was it. So I'm doing pretty good in the melee over here. Pretty happy with that. And to end the turn, his second in command activated, and they really didn't do much at all. He still got that unit of mercenary knights moving around the flank, real slow going. They can't seem to rally and get that disorder off. I think they need a 4+ for being Bs. Yeah, but they're so far away from their command, it's actually penalized to a 5+, which is that guy there. And he chickened out, didn't reassault the village, so his force is just sitting there. He did manage to rally the 1 unit of spearmen on the right there. It's no longer disordered, but it's 1 more loss and it's destroyed. Same thing with his mercenary unit to the left there with the Cav. They're disordered, just 1 more loss away from being routed from the battle. So I don't know, maybe he's going to sit back and keep these guys so they don't come out, but if they do, they're going to be disordered. So I don't know. I think it's a lost cause going for that village. Get himself some victory points for that. So, but again, he's breaking through. I think I might be able to contain him. It all depends about with these guys. They're coming up the hill too now. So I don't know. It's going to come down to the next few turns, folks. Okay, that's it. Go to turn 10. Okay, folks, we just finished turn 10, top of turn 10 actually. The first unit to activate was the Royalist Commander-in-Chief, and that's where we are right now. He just finished his activation. So let's see what he accomplished. And if you remember from the previous turn, these knight units were all back here. Well, look what happened in 1 turn, 1 activation. All of a sudden, there's knights breaking through my line. Well, it all started off down here. There's 2 units of knights, feudal knights, which were down here. Basically charged up the hill, which isn't a hill. I shouldn't even call that a hill. I don't know why I do that. It's just a make-believe slope. But whatever. They got to the battle line. These guys fought to a draw. This was a separate melee from them. It was a group move, which resulted in these guys fighting separately from this guy against my crossbows and archers, Welsh longbowmen actually. And what happened, if you remember, I had my Welsh spears on opportunity behind my unit of longbowmen right there. And the result was the charge from these guys was declared on these guys. And directly behind them was the Welsh spearmen who were on opportunity. And what happened was that the unit on opportunity was able to opportunity charge these guys because they weren't the target of the charge. So basically what happened is they swapped places in the battle line with these archers. And unfortunately my spearmen didn't fare too well, retreated. They followed up, fought again with them, destroyed them. They pursued after that into the crossbowmen who were supporting earlier and were also forced to retreat along with the spearmen. They pursued into them, fought them, defeated them, and eventually pursued into the original target, which was the longbowmen, which are right here, and fought a combat with them, which, weird as it may seem, the longbowmen won, and the knights were actually had to retreat. And the result is they took 2 permanent losses and are disordered, and the longbowmen are disordered with no losses. And I don't know if I said this before, but this melee was pretty much a draw, with the longbowmen being disordered. These infantry never got into combat, and the commander-in-chief's unit over here, the Royalist forces, did actually charge and fought a round of combat with my knights who weren't on opportunity or anything. They couldn't do anything, so they took the charge. And the result was pretty much a draw. His unit took 2 permanent losses, disorder. My unit took disorder with no losses. So that's where it stands. So just that quick, Royalist forces are basically breaking through my line. So let's see if I could follow up with my knights there in reserve. So yeah, we got 3 more commands to activate for the turn. Let's see who's next and what happens. At the bottom of turn 10, the remaining commands activated. Right after the CNC of the Royalist side activated, the next was his second in command over here. And the result of that was his unit of mercenary knights on the far side of that village, right over there, did manage to rally. So they got off 2 moves and were disordered at the end of that second move. But there they are, a little bit closer. These 2 units down here pulled back, got disordered again. They managed to rally. And this one I don't think even had disorder, but it pulled back and was disordered as a result. And he did a sidestep, which disordered him. So he's trying to adjust his forces, I guess. I guess he's not going to go for the village. We'll see. The next force that activated, I believe, was... yeah, my second in command was next. And that was interesting. If you remember, the infantry, the heavy block of infantry was up here. And they activated first, charged his unit of cavalry, and because they were weak, they had some hits, they had disorder, managed to beat him up. So they're out of the game. They routed that unit, and then they pursued a little bit, and that was it. These 2 units followed up, moved a little bit further. They're in the woods, so that's going to be slowed. And these guys over here managed to move forward, became disordered, took a shot at his second unit down here, which was on opportunity, and they took a hit, got disordered, lost their opportunity. So they're now sitting there. And these are impetuous troops, by the way, so I believe they're within 30, so when they next activate, they're going to have to start moving forward towards the enemy. And that's what happened over here. If you look, you'll see my second in command over here with his Knights unit, which is impetuous. When he was activated last, he was within 30 centimeters of this guy right here. And the result of that was he had to move forward his full distance, which was 8 centimeters. And that put him in contact with this unit, which was he was interpenetrating, which immediately put them to the rear of the knight unit. And that's why these guys are behind them now. And then they finished their move forward about another 2 centimeters. So there they are. They're in a prime position to strike. So they're impetuous next turn. They're impetuous next turn. It looks like there's going to be a clash of knights. Finally, my CNC took his action, his activation for the turn. He put the main unit, the 2 main knight units, on opportunity. They're impetuous, but because he won an opportunity, he doesn't have to advance like those guys had to. So I'm on opportunity. So we'll see what the enemy does, and I can react to it with a counter charge or something. That'll be good. This melee over here was fought between the 2 knight units. That's his CNC, the Royalist general, and pretty much stalemated. But they put some permanent losses on each other. They're both disordered, but I do have an upper hand, slightly. He's got 3 permanent losses. I got 1. His VBU is 8, mine is 7, so you can see how it's kind of like a stalemate there. But we'll see. I think I'm going to wear him down. This combat over here was fought, and this time my archers, my longbowmen, took a permanent loss and are disordered, and his unit is still not disordered with no losses whatsoever, so they're still fresh. And finally back here, my second unit of longbowmen, I opted to, he was disordered, so he couldn't react to my movement or shooting. I fired point blank range and then withdrew a short distance in front of my knights. And they'll still be in a position to charge in the next turn if it happens. But yeah, that's where they are right now. So it was kind of effective. I think I put another 2 hits, 1 or 2 hits, permanent losses on his unit of knights here, I think. Yeah, that's it. So that was turn 10, folks. It's getting bloody. Things are happening. Who's gonna take the advantage? We shall see. Alright, we're at the mid-turn of turn 11. Activated 2 commands, which were my side. I started with my second in command. He moved up his force, took some shots at the archers in the woods, and the last thing I activated with him was my general of this command group, and he basically moved 3 times, I think, disordered himself doing so, but managed to make contact with the enemy. So a melee ensued, and it pretty much stalemated. Both disordered, both took a hit. My troops are a little bit better quality, plus I have a general there, so I think I'll win that one. Then at that point, next initiative came, and I activated my general up there successfully with a double 6. So yeah, I gave a nice rousing speech to my soldiers, pushing them to new heights of valor. And yeah, so my excellent general just basically became a charismatic general. So what that means is all my sub-commanders will get a +1 in their initiative rolls. His is already at 2, being a fair general, so now it's going to be 3. And mine is upped from excellent to charismatic, which goes from 3 to 4. So I'll get +4 in my initiative. The only drawback to all that is if I lose my general, all my units in my army suffer a permanent loss of 1 VBU immediately. So that's going to suck. But yeah, so speech time. Anyway, I activated my command over there, and at that point I realized that we made a mistake here. Not much of a big one, but I had been forgetting to do the retreats for this melee over here and for this melee over here, which was them against my archers. And I was probably only 1 or 2 retreats were forgotten about, so that would have quickened the pace of the combat, the outcome of it anyway. As you can see right here, when we remembered, oh, I got to retreat, boom, I ended up losing my archers in one go. So that was that. And over here, we replayed it, and I did my, he lost, retreated, I pursued, we fought again. This time I retreated, fell back, he pursued, so there we are. That's what happened there. So I think we got that sorted out. So yeah, I think I fired with my archers back there. I don't think I did anything really. Nothing effective. Oh yeah, actually I did. I destroyed his unit of knights that was sitting there with my archery fire, with my longbows, which was really sweet. As you can see, there's the casualties for the turn. So yeah, sorry. I let fly with my archers there and took out his other unit of knights. So he might have broken through, but it cost him a unit of knights. Okay, so we got 2 more commands to activate, and they're both on the Royalist side. So we'll see which one it is and what happens. Bottom of the 11th, we just finished the other 2 commands for the turn. Well, let's see what happened. It was basically the Royalists took both of their turns. Let's see. I think he did this one first. The second in command's force. He basically moved up his second in command unit right there, up to that road, getting closer. I don't think he did anything with his infantry. I don't know what their plan is, but they're sitting there in front of the village. And those guys over there on the other side, the mercenaries, they managed to move a little bit more. 1 movement phase, and that was about it. More interesting was what's going on in the middle. They fought to a standstill over here. Nothing really happened. Both knight units right there fought. No retreats or anything. I didn't forget this time. These guys hustled up a little bit. This unit here that destroyed my archers, my longbowmen, in the previous turn, they declared a charge on my other longbow unit. If you remember, these 2 knights were behind them, and they were on opportunity. So what happened is that he couldn't technically declare a charge on my guys, on this guy, because that unit was in the way. And that's an FT unit, missile troops. So he had to declare a charge on them. And all I did is use an opportunity charge against him, which I could do because the charge that he made was not on me. So I interpenetrated my archers, moved up where I wanted to, boom, I hit him. And I did it as a group. They also moved with me, no contact. They continued their move as a group, so there they go. It was all 1 move phase, so there was no disorder for movement. So the melee had a lot of dice. I think there was, like, for my unit right there, command, their VBU was 8, plus impetus, which was 4 more. There was no disorder, so that was about a dozen dice. Their VBU was 7, and they were also considered charging, so they get an impetus bonus, and I believe it was 4, so that was 11. So it was a lot of dice, but wouldn't you know it, the only thing that resulted from that was just disorder. I mean, we passed our cohesion tests. I mean, there was damage, but no permanent losses. Yeah, so that's the look of it. It's getting close. We're going into turn 12, folks. Getting exciting. Let's see what happens. Bottom of turn 12, and guess what? Game's over. And it was pretty dramatic. Let me think here. I don't think any of my side even had the chance to activate before the end came. Yeah, I think that's what happened. I think his second in command activated first. His force over here. I didn't do anything with the infantry. His command unit of knights advanced further up the hill. Disordered. But those guys over there, I think they got like 3 turns of moving, his mercenary knights. And got as far as they did, which really kind of shook me, because all of a sudden, boom, there they are, right on my flank. 1 more turn, they're going to be charging my archers or my command units, so that surprised me. So, goes to show you, anything can happen. Basically, they managed to rally and make all their discipline rolls to get where they're at, so that was that. That was the second in command. Second activation, I tried to activate my my commander-in-chief again with a +4 because he's charismatic after my speech, if you remember. But that didn't happen. So his force his commander-in-chief's command activated before me, and he managed to charge up here with his heavy spearmen. His large unit, I should say, of spearmen. They charged this unit of knights, unfortunately. But I come off pretty good. My knights dwindled them down and took away their large unit status. What else happened? But otherwise, they stood their ground. I think the next thing that happened was an actual combat right here between my commander-in-chief's unit of knights, which are household knights. They're like a VBU of 8, fighting against these guys from the previous turn. So there was no impetus involved or anything. It was pretty straight up and equal. But I think we both got 3 damage on each other. I think, unless that was the previous turn. No, I think it was this turn. But anyway, I managed to roll a 6 on my cohesion roll. And that's my general's unit. So that means, uh-oh, something happened. So I used one of my destiny dice to change it. And wouldn't you know it, I rolled another 6. So as fate would have it, it was meant to be. And the result is that my general, I guess heroically leading his men into battle, was captured. So his entire command basically surrendered at that point. What's left of it anyway. Which is basically that unit of longbows, Welsh longbowmen, his unit of household knights, and this unit of feudal knights. And that's it. That's all he had up there. And coming at him was, he's got 2 units of knights there, another unit of knights there, and mercenary knights on the flank. Not to mention this horde of spearmen that was coming up here, but I wasn't too afraid of them. They were definitely going to hold me up. So that ended at my command left. And that jumped the breakpoint for my army to above what it should be. So I think my breakpoint for my army was, where is it? My breakpoint was 13, and that took it to over 15, 18 actually, because we ended up fighting down here as well, because this one unit that this was fighting here belonged to this command, so they'd still be fighting in the battle. This force over here, they didn't leave. So we fought that out. My guys routed, so he won that one as well, so that was more points going to my demoralization. We also finished fighting this one, and I managed to throw him back. His unit retreated. I tried pursuing, couldn't contact him and finish him off. So that ended the turn. So, yep, that was it. So yeah, what can I say? It was a really fun game. Made a few mistakes here and there. Just a couple little things, like forgetting to do the retreats for a couple combats for like a turn. Nothing major. It's a really fun game. If you have any interest in Ancients, Middle Age, or early Renaissance even, look these rules up. They're called Impetvs, if you've never heard of them before. And they're absolutely fantastic. I mean, when I've played a lot of ancient rules, DBMM, DBA, Field of Glory, all the major ones at one point or another. But I think Impetus, not only is it fun to play, but it has a lot of feel. I mean, I really feel like I'm playing in an ancient battle or witnessing an actual battle. And this battle in particular was quite dramatic the way it ended. I mean, I was basically winning with my force in turn 11. I think I only had a total demoralization value of 5 towards my max of, I don't remember what it was, 14, 15 or something. Then all of a sudden in one turn, boom, you know, there it is. At 18, which exceeded my maximum value for my army breaks. But again, it was quite dramatic, because in the previous turn, turn 11, here's my general, he's an expert, and he all of a sudden he becomes charismatic. So I imagine him up there giving a big speech and boosting the morale of his troops and them all rushing forwards, victory or death. And that quick he got captured. So it was quite anticlimactic in a way. It's almost like Monty Python or something. I won't go into that. But yeah, I highly recommend these rules. I think the assault on the village served its purpose for me. I mean, it stalled his troops. I mean, it definitely didn't have the troops to take on that village. I mean, you couldn't do that. This was a pain in the ass over here for me. But I guess it was for him too. I mean, he held up almost half of my army with just those 2 units, and I couldn't finish him off, just the one. But I don't know. I could have used them infantry, definitely. I mean, he definitely had the knights and the cavalry going here, and those infantry with long spears are perfect against those. Well, they nullify the impetus charge bonus of the knights, so they're perfect. So yeah. So there it is, folks. It was a great game. I enjoyed it. Very fun. If you enjoyed this battle report, I mean, it might not be the best. I'm trying to get this whole process down pat, make it as entertaining as I can. Not an easy task. But if you enjoyed it, let me know, and I'll definitely put more up. I'm definitely up for putting up some instructional or how-to videos for this game. I know there's some tricky areas that need to be addressed. New players would be interested in. I'd be willing to do that. Just leave me some comments. Let me know how you feel. And I really hope you enjoyed it. If any questions about the game, feel free to ask too. Oh yeah. Close up of the camp. There's my camp over there. Pretty fun stuff. What's going on there? Guy sleeping next to a fire. Yeah. Those Welsh longbows really proved their worth too. Damn. There's even one unit still left. Alright, folks. Let me know what you think. I'll definitely be putting up some more battle reports soon. Impetus is definitely one of them. So let me know what you think, how you feel about it. And if I got anything wrong, let me know. Alright. Thanks, folks. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.